What up, your boy Superman? Today's video is about blacks dating in Japan. I saw actually quite a few other videos about blacks dating in Japan, and I don't think it's a hard question. Can blacks date in Japan? The answer is yes. That's all. Let me elaborate, okay? Everyone has preferences. It doesn't matter if you're in Japan, Spain, Portuguese. In Japan, only maybe 10% of the population are willing to date foreigners, okay? About 10%. It might be getting higher, I don't know. Last time I checked, it was around that. So, meaning the rest of the population, unless you speak Japanese and or a supermodel and rich, they're probably not going to date you just because they are unwilling to learn English. So it always depends. Anyways, back to the subjects. I used to live over in Yokohama, and at night I would do these night walks. Okay, and I met many Africans from Africa, Kenya, all over Africa. And now I'll just sit down and talk. They'd be like, "You want a beer?" I'm just like, "No, man, I don't drink. I don't need no beer." And they would just talk to me, like, "Where are you from?" Blah, blah, blah. And they would talk to me about their lives. And this is maybe like 10 guys sitting in a group. So for some people, it might be like, "Oh my gosh, a gang," or something bad. But they weren't doing nothing. They were just sitting, talking to each other about life. Most of them were married to Japanese women. And half of them own their own shops, like a hip hop type of shop or restaurants. Anyways, they talked about how they came as students or just visiting, and they met their wives maybe at a bar, at a store, just whatever. My point is, clearly it's possible, and these guys were like going on like 10 years of marriage. So one guy, he owned a hip hop clothing store shop. He had been married for 10 years and had 2 kids. I have another buddy, I'm not going to name his name. I met him over in Wakayama. He has one boy, top student, half of a kid, who has a Japanese girlfriend, does very well in school. Him and his wife had been married for 20 years. They met in the UK. So, can you date as a black person or as African American or just straight from Africa in Japan? Yes, you can. Plus, there are people, especially over in Tokyo, that love black people. So, for me, I feel like the term black is not really PC, but I'll use it just because it's a really common term, and that's it. So it's very possible. I myself am married. There you go. So it's possible to date. I've had girls want to date me. My Japanese is not very good. It's not very Jozu yet, so it's hard for me to explain Sumasen, chotomate. I can't date you. But anyways, yeah, so it's very possible, and of course there's gonna be this is just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I feel like there is a slight preference towards white people, which makes sense because they see them on TV more, and in bands and stuff like that more. So there's more media about them everywhere, sometimes when I tell people I'm from America, they're like, "You're from America?" Right? Because the image of America is all white people. Which for me, I'm like, okay, whatever. But that's the image of America. So they don't think there's people like me there. There's no Hispanics apparently in America. There's no anyone else in America, just white people. So, and that's kind of the image of Japan has. So Japan, a lot of Japanese people lack knowledge of really just some parts of the world. So I'm not trying to emphasize that because I feel like America itself lacks knowledge of the world too. So everyone kind of lacks knowledge because we're all so into ourselves. You know what I mean? Taking selfies. I'm America. Click, click. Like that. So if you are African American or I don't know, Mexican from Mexico or from Spain or some other country, basically not European descent, you can date here. And if you're European, of course you can date here. So, sorry, I'm not trying to discriminate. This video is just kind of sort of meant for people that, you know, might feel slightly discouraged to even come here because they're like, why should I even come? Like, everybody hates me. Everybody hates black people. I go to Japan, they hate me. I go to Korea, they hate me. You know, and that's just not really the truth. You know, a lot of people in Japan, they care about your insides. It sounds kind of, you know, like, I don't know. Anyways, they care about your inside you, okay? And who you are. Of course, you got to make effort to learn the language and to respect their culture and learn their culture. Because if you're just walking around talking loud, jumping on the train, using your cell phone, you know, walking up the wrong aisle on an escalator, just not respecting anyone's culture, bumping into people, thinking you can do what you want, of course people are probably not going to like you if you are of any color. So I've seen a lot of foreigners actually come here and do that. Typically, it's actually more like Chinese foreigners. They're like usually in groups, they're very loud, and they just don't have any really regard for anyone else. Sorry, that's just what I've seen. I'm not saying all Chinese are like that. I have Chinese friends that are not like that at all, that speak perfect Japanese and are perfectly respectable, and they have Japanese girlfriends and wives. So, yeah, so you can find love in Japan, and as far as I know, if you are black, Mexican, or any other color in this country, don't be discouraged. Come here. Yes, it's difficult. It always will be. There are people like me you can contact. You know, there's plenty of YouTubers you can ask questions about Japan. So, is it easy, you know, assimilating into Japan? It's not that easy because Japan culture is kind of opposite of American culture. So, it's slightly difficult to assimilate into Japan, but I feel like as an American, you don't necessarily have to assimilate. What you're doing is obtaining new skill sets to allow you to survive in Japan. Meaning you don't have to become Japanese to live in Japan. You just have to understand Japanese culture's values so you can use that to not offend or disrespect anyone. That's kind of the goal. I'm not saying come here and be super goody-goody, but at the same time, you are an ambassador to your country, regardless of you like it or not. If you're like, come here and you're French and you're just, you know, you're starting fights, you're rude to people, and they know you're from France, they're going to be like, all French people are jerks. There was this one, sorry, I'm a little off topic, but I want to explain this last one story, okay, Okay, there was this onsen a few years back who kept getting Russian people coming, you know, and they didn't mind having them come. They came, they did their onsen thing, but when they did come, they were loud, messy, they were apparently disrespectful. So eventually the owner got kind of tired of this, and I think they put up a sign saying Japanese only, which I'm not saying is a great solution to that problem. In fact, it's probably a terrible solution because they did get sued and they did lose in court. But at the same time, there was fault on both sides. So anyways, that's kind of end of my my little rant there. So don't be discouraged. No matter who you are, come, okay? Just make sure you do your research about visas and stuff like that, how much money you need to save, where you're gonna work. Make sure your company is reputable. Sorry, it makes me laugh because I feel like all companies are just like, they're all black companies. They're just gonna suck your soul. But that's okay, because they're stepping stones, okay? So your first year here might suck. Unless you're a student. Students' lives are great or better because you're free. You do your homework, you do whatever. You might have a side job to support your fun habits. And then from there, whatever. You're in the JET program, you get more money, and it's easier. I highly recommend the JET program. They've kind of decreased, people coming on the JET program, but I've heard many good things about it. Anyways, peace. In this video, I could easily talk longer and it won't be on topic. So come to Japan. Don't be discouraged. I'll check you later.